Welcome, crime enthusiasts, history buffs, and forensic students. Today, we delve into one of history's most enduring mysteries, Jack the Ripper. This case isn't just about Victorian fear, it's a foundational study in pioneering criminal profiling and the complex controversies surrounding modern DNA analysis. In 1888, a series of brutal murders in London's impoverished East End gripped the world, sowing terror and sparking an unprecedented manhunt. These horrific acts, attributed to an unknown assailant dubbed Jack the Ripper, left an indelible mark on criminal history. The sheer brutality and elusive nature of the killer challenged Victorian law enforcement like never before. Remember their names: Mary Ann Nichols, Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, Catherine Eddowes, and Mary Jane Kelly. These 5 women, known as the canonical victims, were targeted with a chilling consistency, their lives tragically cut short in the dark alleys of Whitechapel. Their stories are central to understanding the true impact of these crimes. Victorian crime scenes presented immense challenges for investigators. There was no systematic fingerprint identification, no concept of DNA evidence, and scenes were often heavily contaminated by onlookers and even police themselves. Forensic science was in its infancy, leaving investigators with minimal tools to work with. This stark reality highlights the limitations faced by detectives of the era. The investigation was further complicated by a barrage of letters purportedly from the killer, including the infamous Dear Boss, Saucy Jackie, and From Hell communications. While many were likely hoaxes, they fueled public hysteria and diverted precious investigative resources. Analyzing these letters today offers insights into the psychological warfare employed by the unknown perpetrator or opportunistic pranksters. The killer's modus operandi was chillingly consistent: night attacks, swift and brutal assaults, followed by extensive post-mortem mutilation. This pattern suggested an offender comfortable with extreme violence and operating with a disturbing level of confidence. Such a signature indicated a highly organized and dangerous individual, a key insight for early profiling efforts. Amidst the chaos, police surgeon Dr. Thomas Bond drafted one of history's first documented offender profiles in 1888. This groundbreaking analytical effort attempted to deduce the killer's characteristics based solely on the crime scene evidence. Bond's work laid a crucial, if rudimentary, foundation for what would become modern behavioral analysis. Dr. Bond concluded the killer displayed signs of sexual sadism but lacked any special anatomical skill, despite the extensive mutilations. He hypothesized the perpetrator was likely a local solitary man, driven by a homicidal and erotic mania. This early profile, though limited by the era's understanding, was a remarkable attempt to infer psychology from pathology. However, opinions within the investigative ranks diverged significantly. Some officials suspected a mentally disordered loner, perhaps an asylum escapee, while others imagined a perpetrator with medical or surgical training due to the precise nature of some wounds. This divergence underscores the nascent state of criminal psychology and the lack of standardized analytical frameworks. Modern geographic analysis, applying sophisticated mapping techniques to the original crime locations, clusters the murders tightly within Whitechapel. This spatial pattern strongly suggests the killer had a deep familiarity with the area, likely living or working very close to the heart of the crimes. Such analysis provides compelling evidence for a local offender. Witness reliability was a significant hurdle for Victorian investigators. Inconsistent descriptions, the dim illumination of gaslight conditions, and pervasive fear made eyewitness accounts notoriously difficult to corroborate. This lack of reliable direct evidence forced investigators to rely more heavily on circumstantial details and early forms of forensic deduction. Dozens of suspects were proposed over the decades, ranging from local residents and known offenders to prominent figures and even royalty. Yet despite intense scrutiny and countless theories, none were ever definitively proven to be Jack the Ripper. The sheer volume of unverified claims highlights the enduring speculative nature of the case. A century later, science returned to the case with the advent of DNA technology, offering a tantalizing prospect of solving the mystery. Researchers began testing historical artifacts, including stamps, envelopes, and even a purported victim's shawl, hoping to extract definitive genetic material. This marked a new chapter in forensic cold case analysis. However, any spittle DNA on the infamous Ripper letters faces immense challenges due to heavy contamination. These documents pass through countless hands: police, reporters, collectors, and researchers over more than a century. The integrity of such samples is severely compromised, making reliable genetic analysis virtually impossible. A widely publicized claim involved a shawl linked to victim Catherine Eddowes, touted as containing decisive DNA evidence pointing to a specific suspect. The problem, from a forensic standpoint, was its weak provenance and significant handling gaps. The chain of custody, a critical principle in modern forensics, was entirely absent, rendering the evidence highly questionable. Furthermore, the DNA analysis often cited was mitochondrial DNA, mtDNA, which tracks maternal lineage. While useful, mtDNA is far less discriminating than nuclear DNA. Common haplotypes can match many unrelated people, especially within a large population, making it insufficient for individual identification without corroborating evidence. Some claims regarding the shawl's DNA results significantly overstated their statistical significance. Without robust statistical analysis and a clear understanding of population frequencies, a match can be profoundly misleading. Forensic science demands not just a match, but a quantifiable probability of that match occurring by chance. The chain of custody for many Ripper artifacts is severely broken. Items passed through numerous hands, often without proper documentation or preservation. Without a clean, unbroken chain of custody, any lab results, no matter how sophisticated, cannot carry the weight required to definitively solve a historical case in a court of law. What would truly prove the Ripper's identity? Authentic, well-documented biological material directly from the killer, ideally nuclear DNA, would be required. Such a discovery, coupled with a verifiable chain of custody from the crime scene, would be the only way to definitively link a suspect to the Whitechapel murders. Dr. Bond's memo, despite its limitations, foreshadowed modern behavioral analysis, anchoring hypotheses to observable crime scene indicators. His work demonstrated the critical importance of meticulous crime scene examination and the systematic deduction of offender characteristics, laying groundwork for future criminal profiling methodologies. The press frenzy surrounding the Ripper case amplified public fear and inadvertently encouraged hoaxes, further distorting the signals investigators desperately needed. This historical example serves as a cautionary tale about the impact of sensationalized media on criminal investigations and the challenge of discerning truth from fabrication. Why did the murders suddenly stop? This remains one of the most perplexing questions. Theories range from the suspect's death, arrest on other charges, or simply displacement from the area. Without further evidence, the cessation of the crimes remains an unknown variable in the Ripper's psychological profile. Modern rereads of the case, incorporating advanced analytical techniques like geographic profiling and victimology, consistently point to a local offender deeply embedded within the East End community. The killer's comfort with the terrain and timing of the attack strongly suggests a resident, not an outsider. It is crucial to maintain a victim-centered framing when discussing the Ripper case. This historical study is fundamentally about women whose lives were brutally stolen, not merely a puzzle to be solved. Acknowledging their humanity and the tragedy of their deaths is an ethical imperative in forensic analysis. The limitations of old evidence, degraded DNA, and poor documentation severely restrict what modern laboratories can definitively prove today. While scientific advancements are remarkable, they cannot overcome the fundamental absence of pristine, uncontaminated samples from the original crime scenes. Science has its boundaries. Beware of bold "we solved it" headlines that often discard crucial caveats. Always ask critical questions. What was the sample quality? What statistical significance does the match hold? Was there a verifiable chain of custody? Forensic certainty requires rigorous adherence to scientific principles, not sensational claims. If ever found, authenticated biological stains from the original crime scenes could allow for advanced sequencing and genealogical inference, potentially narrowing down a suspect pool. This remains the most promising, albeit highly improbable, path to a definitive resolution. The hope for new evidence persists. The enduring lesson from the Jack the Ripper case is the power of method over myth. Criminal profiling narrows the field of inquiry, while robust evidence confirms or refutes hypotheses. Without both, claims remain mere opinion and the truth remains elusive. For more Science Meets History breakdowns and in-depth forensic analysis, subscribe to the AI Criminologist. Join our community of curious minds and help us unravel the complexities of crime, past and present. Hit that subscribe button and notification bell so you don't miss our next deep dive.